Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel of crafting, crochet and knitting, and for today, spinning. My name is Nikki and welcome to my little yarniverse. So hello, welcome to part 2 of my learning to spin with an e-spinner. So if you haven't checked out part 1 already, then head back to that video and check out me learning to spin singles ready to make yarn. So today we're going to be plying, winding and measuring the thickness of the completed yarn, and this is using brown Shetland from a kit that I have. So it's going to be a brown undyed yarn at the end of the video. I didn't do so great in this video. I made a few sort of not silly mistakes, but I was tired and I wasn't at my best. That's not to say that in part 1 you're not going to see some errors. My consistency when I'm spinning is not great, but that was to be expected. I think the things that I did wrong during the flying stage were just unexpected and catching me off guard, and I thought I'd leave them in because that way you get to see the authentic process. So be prepared for a few errors, but hopefully you enjoy this video and I'll chat to you again at the end. Hi, welcome back. Haven't decided yet whether this is going to be 2 videos or 1 video, so I might not have got anywhere to you. But for me, it is a new day, or should I say a new evening, because I was struggling to find time to spin up the rest of the brown Shetland bat of fibre. This was my original bobbin that I made with you guys on camera, and then I've spun the remaining bat off camera just because it would have taken an hour otherwise, and you didn't need to see me doing the same thing I was doing a bit ago. I think it's a little more consistent. Yeah, you know what? I think it's a little more consistent. Whether it would fall apart when I try to ply this, I've got no idea. So this is what we're doing today. We're trying to ply these two together. We'll find out how consistent I've been in a minute, because if it plies together in a weird way, then it means that they were different thicknesses. But the way that we're going to get these plied together is using this makeshift thing. So this is my makeshift, I think it's called a lazy Kate. It's basically 2 dowels that I have for crocheting banners that I've gone and poked through holes in the sides of an old shipping box. And I'm going to put this underneath the table with the bobbins on it. So the bobbins are going to go on the dowels like so. I'm going to put that one on there, and I'm going to put this one on here in just a minute, and then I've taped down the end. I'll be grabbing that in just a second in order to start plying. So give me one moment. Okay, so my second bobbin definitely looks like it's got more yarn on it than the first, so we'll see how well this goes. I'm also slightly breaking apart my shipping container. And we're going to need at least 1 more bobbin to ply onto. So we'll put this back together again, pop it into place, put the tension back, put the driver wheel back. There we go. And make that a bit tighter. Okay, that's now set up. Annoyingly, I don't think I have got a easy piece of yarn to use as a leader. Sometime later. Okay, so I realised that I would need a leader. So just grabbed some thread. Important thing I need to do, well, first let me pop this down. The important thing I need to do is switch this now into an S twist. So there's a little noggin there to press, and I'm going to tie this together. So this is not the best leading thread in the world. This is just a tiny piece of cotton that I had available in the absence of anything else. So we're going to start slow. Oh, turn it back on and start slow. And see if we can't. This might not work. Okay, leading thread not working, but I'll tell you what we will do. We will use it because it's good enough to pull through onto the bobbin. My problem is that this little gadget here only pulls through this way, and I can't tie the yarn in place if it only pulls through that way. So we'll get this tied into place. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna cut that off now that we don't need it. It's just in the way. Down, wind that back. Okay, not the smoothest thing in the world to do. I tried to use a piece of cotton thread as a leading thread, and it turns out that that doesn't work well with the spin. So lesson learned, don't do that. But what it could do was pull the yarn ends from the bobbins through so that I could wind them onto this bobbin. This device doesn't bend well in terms of trying to pull through from this angle. It pulls through better from this angle. That's the problem I was having because I couldn't put this easily onto the bobbins to tie it up. But we're there now, so let's start plying again. So I've got a few bumps to begin with. Where my yarn wasn't so great. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to slide that to the end there. And then hopefully this will work a bit better as I will get going again. Okay, something's not quite working the way I want it to. So I think that maybe the tension's not quite right. Let's try again. So strange you actually lowered the tension there, but that does seem to feel like it's going a bit better. So we're S-twisting now, and it's just a lot easier because I don't have to worry about drafting. I'm just trying to make sure that the twist is about right and that it's not over twisted. There are definitely bits of my yarn that were not well done. But in general it's not too bad. A lot of it is about the same thickness, which is great. Not so much around here. There's some bumpy bits around here. Never mind. This is what we call artistic yarn. stop, shunt this up a little bit more if we can. Okay, we can't, so we'll use the slider and do it properly. So the first yarn, the first fibre that I used was a grey Jacob, and this is a brown Shetland. And my grey Jacob didn't go very well, I don't feel. This feels like it went a lot better. I do actually have some bats of Jacob that I could use. So I guess I'll find out when I start using them whether I just don't get on well with the staple length of Jacob, or whether it was just because it was the first yarn I tried, or the first fibre I tried. This is coming out at probably an Aran weight, mostly. There are parts where it's a bit more DK, but with all of the mistakes that I've made, I think it's safer to call it an Aran. Okay, I'm going to have to shift again. Trying to keep it quite well balanced on the bobbin, because if it gets too thick in any place, then what I found is that the flyer can't go all the way around, and if the flyer can't go all the way around, then you have to switch out for a different bobbin. So the one thing that I do notice is that if I've got a particularly highly spun single, I can feel it trying to curl on itself. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm pulling that out when it comes in here. So actually a little bit there is just curling in on itself. So it won't be the best yarn in that respect, but most of it's okay. So that's just where I've overspun things when I've done the single. It's especially noticeable in thinner parts of the yarn, especially when those thin parts are next to thick parts from the other single. We are very nearly out of space on the bobbin. In fact, I think that is out of space on the bobbin. So I'm going to stick that in the notch on the side, flip the switch, get a piece of tape ready, although I did manage to do it without tape last time. So I'm going to also pop that there, cut that there, unravel a little bit just so that I can poke through here, and then do a bit of a crochet hook to tie it down, like so. Then we can release the tension. and release the driver belt. We're going to have to pull this out in order to pull the flyer off. Oh, and I've just lost the yarn. One plied yarn. So that's going there. We know the bobbin. And both of my ends have tangled somewhere in here. Okay, here it is. So we're going to pop that through in advance. Try and no, I can't pop that through in advance because of the driver belt. So we'll leave that out for a moment. We'll put this back on. Put the driver belt in place, making sure it's in the groove. Put the tension back in place and make sure it's in the groove. There we go. Work the tension back up. Try to thread this through. Oh, it's losing a lot of its spin. Okay, now I'm going to start plying the second bobbin, so we will turn that back up. Now we're going to have to be careful because it's gone and spun in on itself. I'm going to have to undo that in order to apply it to our other this bit's fiddling. Okay, try not to let them curl on themselves. Right, let's go. Shift that up and shift this down and go again. So I've actually got a lot more yarn on my second bobbin than I have on my first. So when we get to the end, there is something I'm going to have to do to try and fix that, but it might not be easy. So as I'm plying this time, I I'm realising that when I get to the thick bits, I have to hold it there for longer to get the spin in. And if I release it too far down, then I get the thicker parts unwind, and then maybe they're not the most stable. So I think that it's better for me to hold it there a bit and then let it go straight onto the bobbin so it maintains the twist, rather than letting it go down the ply. Could be wrong, could be completely not understandable as well. So basically, like with the thicker parts, I'm holding it here for longer, letting the spin go, and then trying to let it be taken up onto the bobbin before it has a chance to travel, for that spin to travel down the rest of the single. Whereas when they're quite even, I can let it travel a bit, because I don't want to get this too highly spun. Okay, now I have to stop because this has come off the end of my other yarn, of my other bobbin, and as you can see, there's a lot left on there. So this might not work. You're supposed to take it off and then unravel it all the way back to the beginning, which is going to take a while for me, and all of this is going to start trying to curl on itself, which is potentially problematic. But let's see what we can do. And basically, everywhere that you can see that it's trying to ply on itself, I'm going to try and do that, but I'm going to try and do it on my terms, so I'm going to have to undo a lot of where it's plied on itself. Because what I want is for this part to sit at the end of my previous part. So I'm going to hold that for now. I'm going to do my best to wind the latter part of that together. Do you have a problem? Yeah. There we go. I think that's as good as I'm going to get that. Let's see. So I think that's not very good actually. Oh, that's not very good. But let me keep that end. And then we're going to find that now. I'm going to have to cut that part off. Okay, so I can't do anything with that. Let's try and get some spin back in there. And where's my end gone? There it is. Okay, so what I've done is I've put the end of the bobbin where the end of the previous bobbin ended, and I've just let that travel through. And the problem I'm going to have is that these bits have unwound so much that I'm going to have to keep looking after that. Everywhere that it's plied in on itself, I'm going to have to be going slow enough to undo it in order to get it to ply onto the other thread. So this is going okay until I hit the next one, because that one's not a good one. And it naturally wants to curl in on itself, which is good for being able to finish the bobbin, but not so good for having to undo all of these spins that have all these plies that have curled up in here, see? I've got to undo all of those. Got two bad ones here, so. But the worry is that if too much spin has travelled, I might get a sort of knot like I had a minute ago. That's a bit more manageable. Of course, the yarn is toothy, it wants to stick to itself. So I have to be careful on doing them. Another one here. And what I will do is I will move this at the same time. So I unwind this. This is actually the most consistent part because the second skein, the second bobbin was relatively consistent, and I'm now applying it back on itself. So it's actually some of the best, most consistent yarn that's coming through. There's just a few bits that are a problem. Okay, I've got quite a big knot there. Oh, quite a lot going on here. Oh goodness. That part seems to have gotten tangled on itself, getting tangled on itself, so. Put that in the notch and see if we can't sort some of this out. Sorry about that, folks. Some of the plies are actually tangling inside other plies. I think if I can just get it to travel a little bit further down. Not to be quite so in the way. This point. Let's try again. this getting so tangled on itself. The problem that what I'm worried about here is that as it gets tangled on itself, it seems to be losing some of the spin of the single in the first place, which doesn't bode well for the strength of this yarn. Okay, I'm not having a good time with this part. Plying the previous one was a reasonable experience, but plying this is quite horrible. It's getting all toothy and connected to each other, and I'm worried I'm about to snap it. And it just goes and winds itself up again as soon as I've managed to undo it. Okay, so that is the second bobbin finished. So I'm going to turn this off, I'm going to release the tension, and I'm going to take this off the flyer. Now, with the last one that I made with the grey Jacob, I left them on the bobbins for a little while so that they could hopefully settle slightly. So I'm going to take this off as well. Go. And I'm going to just thread this through like that, just to hold it in place, and then I'm going to leave these here for now. When I've left them for a day or two, I will wind them up into little balls of yarn and weigh them to see how much we've got. So yeah, that is everything for today. Okay, so last step is winding into a ball of yarn what was on the bobbin. So this is what was on here, and I've wound it into a ball, and then using our scales to weigh how much there is, and using our card from the pack to tell us what weight of yarn we've got. So I've already taken a look at this, but let's do the second one together, shall we? So to make my life easier, I'm going to use this to pop the bobbin on here, and then I'm just going to like hold that between either my arm or just like between my legs or something like that to hold it in place, and then this is going to spin off the bobbin faster. So I'm going to unhook the bit I had there and hold it in place, and then we are going to wrap it around our 3 fingers and spin around our fingers for a little bit just to get things going. And then once you've got a fair amount, you're going to pull it off your fingers and then hold it in the middle there and start winding around the middle. So here we go. So we're going to do this a little bit as well, just to give us some grip in the centre. And then as we get a little bit more of a bump forming, we can start going more diagonally. So do that for a couple of turns, then twist it round, that for a couple of turns. And if you put your thumb in the centre, you have something to work against, so it doesn't try to slide off the ball, because if I don't do that, then like potentially that can slide off the edge there. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but I find it helps. And then we're going to keep going round and round like this until all the yarn on our bobbin has come off into our ball. And actually one of my threads did just try to slip down. And the more you work your way around like this, the more this starts to form into that slightly cakier shape that you get in the centre of some balls of yarn. Oh, there you go. So that just slipped down. So I'm going to undo that and go around again. But also the wider this gets, the more you've got something to grip onto as you go round. Ooh. Where did we get to? There we go. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take just a little break whilst I'm partway through my bobbin, and I'm going to wrap this around our measurement, because what's in the middle is probably the most indicative of what we've got in general. So we are going to wrap this several times around our card. And slide them all together. Okay, and then I'm just going to slide them up to here. So we're starting at the 1 inch mark, and I'm looking for how many wraps we get between 1 and 2 inches. And I think that this is about it. And then we're going to count them. So the number of wraps that we have is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if I slide this up, then we can see that 10 wraps per inch is sort of between these two, and it's about an Aran weight yarn. So that's a really handy little device. I'm going to slide those off now, put this to one side, and then we're going to keep winding our Aran weight yarn. So I will have to try to learn how to spin thinner in future, because I typically use a 4-ply or a sock weight yarn, which means I need to have somewhere between 14 and 20 wraps per inch. So I'm a bit of a ways off yet. So now that I've got a fair amount on my ball of yarn, I can just turn the ball of yarn in a whole bunch of different directions, do a few wraps, turn it again, do a few more wraps, and that will just try and keep it sort of even. So we get a nice sphere. And I think we are at the end of our ball of yarn, so we're going to have to work out how to untie this from the bobbin. Because also there's not much spin at this end, so there's every possibility that I just rip through the yarn, rip through the fibre as I try to untie it. I think we've managed to get this off. So when I start using it, I'll just have to add some twist to the very front. But there is our ball of yarn, and time to get weigh scales out. So this ball was about 12 grams, 12.15 apparently, and this ball is 26.5. So in total we have got about just short of 40 grams of yarn. in Aran weight. So yes, as you can see, I was having quite a few issues, but we ended up at the end with about 40 grams of Aran weight yarn, which is still amazing. I learned some lessons, and I think the biggest thing that I was having trouble with in this video was the overspinning that I was doing. There's gonna be a degree of the yarn wanting to spin back on itself. I talk about this at the end of the first video, and some other things, but I was focused, or trying to focus, on my drafting and, you know, trying to get some consistency there. It's not great, but that was my focal point, and what I ended up neglecting was whether I was under or over spinning, and as a result I had a bad time tying my yarn together. So all those times where I was getting the yarn create these little end pieces where it was spinning back on itself, and I had to undo that during the plying process, that was all because my yarn was a bit overspun. And I think from the videos I've watched, you can expect it to spin back a little bit, but not to the extent that I was having issues. And that made things take a lot more time, and I was getting a little frustrated. It was getting late and I just wanted to finish it and let it settle on the bobbins, rather than having to leave it halfway done. So yes, I could have done without that. It would have been a smoother process without that, but we can address that next time. I still have some more yarn, well, not yarn, I have more fibre left to turn into yarn, and this is a blue-faced Leicester fibre. It's white in its undyed state, and so yeah, I guess I'll see how that works up next time, and maybe I'll video that, maybe I won't, I don't know, but I will generally keep you updated in my podcast series anyway about how any spinning goes, because I've also got all the colourful fibre to spin up as well, and this ultimately is all about me being able to use things that are in my stash. So I got absolutely loads of fibre from various shows. I got a bit carried away because I bought a drop spindle, so I need some fibre, but the rate at which I was spinning yarn with my drop spindle was pretty slow, and I have needed the e-spinner, and now that I have it, it is making the process so much more enjoyable, so much quicker, and it means that things are not just sitting on my shelves, pictured here, are not just sitting on my shelves waiting to be used. I'm actually trying to use things. So yes, in my future podcasts we will chat a lot more about that as well. For now, I'm going to leave the video here because it's getting long, but I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that you've maybe seen some of the mistakes that can be made when you're just starting, and know that it's not just you if you are starting and struggling. That actually there's a lot going on, there's a lot to think about. There are definitely spinners on YouTube who are more equipped to teach you than me, but hopefully you've seen some of the pitfalls I've fallen into, so you can be aware of what to have a little search for from that spinning content. And yeah, I'll just keep you informed, and I'll see you in a future podcast. Bye for now.